Hey everyone, we're here with Michigan Forward at the Mackinac Republican Leadership Conference. We're so excited to be here with Ambassador Rick Grenell. Ambassador, thank you so much for taking some time to chat with us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't begin our conversation addressing some recent events. Obviously, conservatives suffered a devastating loss with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. I know you knew him personally. Maybe we can begin by you just telling us a bit about what you think Charlie meant to the conservative movement. And then maybe broadly speaking, where do we go from here as a country after such a horrific event?
Well, we could do a whole show just on Charlie. I mean, he's an amazing guy. I'm having a hard time talking about him in the past tense still. He's a close friend of mine and talk to him very regularly. It was on the Turning Point board. Charlie, you know, when we talk about our society and how difficult it is for people who differ in their viewpoints to come together, whether it's your neighbors or your friends on Facebook or people in your family, right? When we have disagreements, somehow we've come to this point in our society where we cancel each other, we debank each other, we turn them in, and it's really awful. It's a cancel culture. It's the left running out of the room with their fingers in their ears saying, I don't want to be a part of this. I need a safe space because I'm hearing something that I disagree with. And Charlie, if you know that that's a problem, and I think everybody in our society knows that that's a problem, Charlie tackled that head on by saying, I'm not asking you to change your viewpoint, moderate in any way. I'm not asking you to become a squishy, person on your personal beliefs. I'm just asking you to listen and let me talk, and then I will listen when you talk. And he would invite people up at all of his rallies to have a discussion when they disagreed with him. And when the crowd would say, this person's terrible, or boo, or try to overshout, Charlie was the first one to say, no, I want to hear from this person. Let's be respectful. And then the debate would happen, and Charlie would crush him because he was an incredible debater, and he wasn't going to hold back, but he was always respectful. And that's what I like, is you want to be educated on the issues. You want to challenge people because these issues are important, and debating them is really important. I'm old enough to remember that we used to have that system where, my dad used to tell me, shut up and listen. You might learn something. And so listening and responding, not stopping talking so that you're thinking about what you're going to say next, but actually listening is incredibly important. And so I would just say that Charlie's legacy is about calm debate, listening, inviting the other side to have their moment, and responding, of course, forcefully with your words and with your arguments, which Charlie did. But inherent in that idea is to be prepared, is to read and to be educated and factual. And so
I think that our words do matter, and we're moving away from
the idea of cancel culture, and we're moving towards consequence culture, where there are consequences for you being an idiot. There are consequences for you calling for violence. And I don't mean that we cancel you, but I think that if you have an uneducated point of view and you articulate it, I want to mock that. I want to show people how dumb it is, and also then come and argue against it. I want you to have your First Amendment rights. But you also have consequences for those words, where people are going to know exactly who you are.
Yeah, we actually had one of our employees, you may have seen on social media, who went into Office Depot, tried to get a poster printed for the vigil for Charlie Kirk, and he had got denied that service, and that's what it was. It was consequences for those actions. So he certainly left a legacy, and is not someone that I think any of us are going to be forgetting. And I thought a lot about his legacy when we were leading up to our conversation. And one of the legacies that I also think he left is his ability to get so many people engaged in politics. Yeah. And I know decades from now, we're going to be finding politicians and other activists that are going to be able to trace back their origin to Charlie Kirk.
So he's really grown a whole generation of people, right? Not only through politics, but through all those tangential things, the media, social media, religion. Turning Point Faith is an amazing organization. And so I think Charlie understood the implications of politics on all of our society, on social media, on young people, and on our faith. And he combined those, and I think it's why he was so popular.
Yeah. Yeah, I think those kind of influencers are really important. I'm kind of curious, kind of your origins. A lot of people don't know this. You were actually born in Michigan,
Yeah.
helped get some Republicans elected or tried to there. And maybe tell us a bit about your background and your connections here with the Great Lakes State.
Yeah, I was born in Muskegon, Michigan, at Hackley Hospital, and have a ton of family in the Muskegon area. My grandparents were there for a long time. My family moved to Grand Rapids area, Jenison, Michigan. And so I graduated from Jenison High School and then went off to college in Missouri and grad school in Boston and kind of started my career. I live in California. Interesting enough, my mom's family is from California and is from the Bay Area. And so we've always had that kind of in our blood. But the fact that, my mom lives here in Western Michigan, it's home. And I have a brother and his family that live here, a lot of nephews and nieces in the area, a lot of extended family. Michigan has always been a place that I call home, that I feel comfortable with. And so I've watched politics in Michigan for a long time. I like to participate in it every once in a while by helping friends and other people who I get to know. And so I have stepped out, endorsed candidates, worked hard for them. I spent this last election for President Trump, spend a lot of time in Detroit organizing Arabs and Muslims, who are a large part of our community in Michigan, just for them to understand the importance of foreign policy, the importance of a government that's listening and responding on foreign policy issues. And so we had an amazing time spending, several months in and around the communities in the Detroit area. And I'm very proud of how they came out and voted for President Trump.
Yeah, Michigan, obviously a very diverse state with a lot to offer. One of the things that I think it was no surprise to a lot of people in our political wing is that President Trump was able to win over so many of the working class voters here in Michigan and across the Midwest. I'm curious, what do you think was that driving factor that swung so many people over to President Trump in 2024? And then what do we need to do as Republicans to keep those voters in our column going into 2026?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. First of all, President Trump, billionaire, somebody who you would think would be an elitist, but he's anything but. And I think that who he is a very transparent person. I used to hear the media say, we want more information from politicians. We want to know what the president is thinking. We want to know what the president is negotiating and how he or she are doing it, not just the press release after the fact, right? We heard from reporters constantly, bring us into the process, bring us into the thinking. Donald Trump has done that. Some of them complain about it now because they say, oh, he's just speaking off the cuff. Well, it's what they asked for. It's what the people asked for, which is, let's be transparent. Let's have a leader who is telling us what the criteria is that they're using, how they are thinking about these issues, and not just waiting until the issue is packaged, right? That's not how people live. Most people have a conversation about the priority issues and they go back and forth in their family. And I think Donald Trump, as the most transparent politician ever, is appealing to regular people. They like it. They like watching his process, his thought process, what he's thinking. They like how he responds as a normal person. And I think that the media have never gotten that, and the left has never gotten that. They try to make him a politician. Oh, you're not supposed to say that. You're not supposed to do that. And for President Trump, the coalition that he's put together, if you think about it, is really extraordinary. It's first and second generation Americans. It's working class people. It's young people, and it's minorities. And you combine that with just the traditional Republicans who want small government, personal responsibility, lower taxes, stay out of my business, and it's a winning combination. So it's a long answer to say I think the politicians that stay close to that messaging, they are the ones that are going to win. Winning is a math equation. You got to look and see, how do you add, not subtract. And so I was a little bit frustrated, I got to be honest with you, with some politicians who didn't come down to Detroit when we were organizing with Arabs and Muslims and Albanians and all sorts of different groups, working class people, young people, first and second generation Americans. All of those groups who were energized for President Trump should have been energized for some of the other candidates, but they weren't, because they didn't show up. They didn't know who they were. And these voters in Detroit, they're not Republican voters that are just going to vote straight ticket. They are frustrated with Democrats. They like what President Trump is saying. And so I think people who are running in those areas have to be able to pick up some of those qualities that I think President Trump demonstrates, which is really transparency and showing up and trying to get to know individuals as an individual and finding that common ground, because I see President Trump do it all the time. He likes people. He's a people person. You put him in a room with anybody, and he's going to ask about their family. He's going to ask about their mom and dad. And he's going to leave knowing that person a little bit more. And that person feels connected because it's a transparent, honest, real human conversation.
Yeah, that's definitely part of the equation. And I think that genuine nature of the president is what definitely appeals to people. But the other aspect of it is the successes that the president is delivering. He's certainly in his second administration on a fast track here, delivering success after success. In Michigan here, we've obviously benefited from those as well.
Yeah.
What are some of those successes we can point to in the administration for Michigan?
Well, first of all, having a president, having any politician that's paying attention to the working class and what they are witnessing from their government is incredibly important. I'll give you an example. Too many politicians, I think, try to appeal to the working class on a short-term basis. They say, oh, we're going to give you more pay, we're going to give you more time off, more union representation. That's very short-sighted. I'm not saying that those issues are not important, but I'm saying it's very short-sighted, because too many people now who are union members are understanding what's happening in our society and in our culture. And they're very nervous about the long-term effects of tariffs, of just a culture of cancel, of a DOJ that was targeting people that they didn't like, an IRS that was targeting people that they didn't like, a growing bureaucracy and a growing debt. So all of those issues, I think, working class people were beginning to see, I don't have enough money because of all of these other issues. And I can't just vote on who's going to raise my pay. I could lose my job if, we don't have a president fighting for America and keeping American jobs here and defending against China. We're losing contracts, people would say constantly. They'd say, look, I have a really great paying job now. I may not have a great paying job next year, because I see what's happening in my company. We're losing contracts because we can't keep up with how China's undercutting us, or Latin America, or whatever the issue is. People now are understanding that their job, their future, their hope is tied to federal issues like never before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that ability for the president and the entire administration to fight for everyday people is certainly something that I think is going to keep bringing people back to Republicans. Speaking of successes, I did want to touch on here what you're specifically working on. You were appointed executive director of the Kennedy Center, an institution that has seen better days. And so why don't we talk a little bit about what you and your team are doing to restore such an important institution?
It's funny because it's a great question, and thank you for it. I've been thinking about these issues on how the Kennedy Center and what we're doing there, how it relates to the rest of America for a long time. And it really dawned on me the last couple of weeks as we're talking about the consequence culture and the bad decisions. And a light really came on for me when Jimmy Kimmel was let go. Because, well, most of the media is rushing to say, oh, it was because he said this or said that. ABC president came out and said, we're losing millions of dollars on Jimmy Kimmel. He's only appealing to a very small number. I saw that he was, in his last kind of week ratings, he was down to 139,000 people watching his show. It made me realize that big corporations who are trying to keep sponsors cannot make decisions that are financially bad for them, especially year after year after year. If maybe there's a down year and you think that this is going to be a show that people are going to eventually come around to, you can stay with it for that year. But what's happening in ABC, CBS, and NBC studios, they have hired these people at exorbitant salaries who are not bringing in the eyes or the viewers. And so the sponsors don't come. The sponsors don't like Jimmy Kimmel, who has a Democrat and only a Democrat on every single night, doesn't have Republicans. It's clear that the guy is a partisan lefty, which is fine for his First Amendment rights. But it's terrible when you're an employee of Disney and Disney wants to make money. And so losing millions and millions of dollars consecutively is not sustainable. It's exactly what happened at the Kennedy Center, is we had programming that people weren't coming to see. And we were losing lots of money constantly and having to beg people for more money. It was very much behind. When I showed up, the person who had my job before me was getting paid $1.4 million a year, but they didn't have any money in the bank, and they were paying the staff with debt reserves. And so we just had to make some fundamental changes. It's important for me to say and for people to hear, I didn't cancel a single show at the Kennedy Center for any reason. All I did is institute common sense rules. If you are coming to the Kennedy Center with a program, I said, you have to sell enough seats to pay the bills, get to revenue neutral. If you can't sell enough tickets because your show is expensive, then your second bite at the apple is you have to get a sponsor or some sort of a donor to make up the difference. And sometimes you can do that. Sometimes there's programming that people believe in, that they want to write the check because it's educational. Get me to zero again. I don't need to make money. I don't want to lose any money. So if you can't fill the seats and you can't find a sponsor, then I simply said, you're on the hook. You owe me. Because I'm not going to take the hit any longer, because I have to be responsible. We have to have a Kennedy Center that is going to be around for a very long time. What they did instead is they took the money from maintenance. Instead of keeping this beautiful building up, they decided to not spend any money. We have rooms at the Kennedy Center that haven't been touched since 1973.
Wow.
We had massive sewer problems. We have boiler problems. Behind the curtain, it was terrible. People would come to the Kennedy Center and they would look and they'd say, oh, this is an aging beauty. And so President Trump just said, you know what we're going to do? So we're going to fix the programming, and then we're going to fix the building. We're going to get it back up. And so we got $257 million from Congress to fix the building. It's only for the building. We can't spend it on salaries or programming, but we're going to get the Kennedy Center, the premier institution for America, back up to a shining perfection of what it should be, not an aging beauty where it's fallen apart.
That's incredible. And honestly, the reforms that you're describing are so refreshing to hear from government.
Common sense.
Common
right?
sense. Exactly. So, well, I want to thank you again so much for taking the
Thanks for
time
having me.
to chat with us. And any parting words for Michigan Republicans going into 2026?
Get out there. I mean, you can't be lazy, right? We work hard, we elect people, and you've got to get them reelected. You've got to go after these seats. Young people are excited right now, so I would say really concentrate on young people. Go after first and second generation Americans. They're teaching the rest of us how to love America and why they came here. And so let's celebrate legal immigration, and let's always articulate that we are against sanctuary cities. We're for the rule of law. You don't like a law, go try to change it, but don't do your own thing.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again, Ambassador.
All the best.
And just a reminder here, stay tuned to all of our social media accounts for more coverage and exclusive interviews from Michigan Forward at the Mackinac Republican Leadership Conference.